So season three, bit of a bit of a mixed package actually, because whereas season two was was basically fairly consistent in terms of the quality of its episodes. I mean, there were episodes that were better than others, but for the most part, it stayed pretty consistent. You never really felt like this episode was radically superior or inferior to another episode. Season three is a different story. I'll break it down because the season starts with a bang like season two. I mean, it's this big. It's basically focusing on the clone squad from Rookies, which was my favorite episode of season one. It's basically focusing on that squad, but it's a prequel episode. It shows how they became a squad, how they eventually learned how to work together. It's this, and they're going through all these training programs on the clone planet of Camino, and I actually really like the aesthetic for this kind of training simulation, because what it's I'm trying to think what it looks like, because it looks like a video game. It looks like probably the episode what I can point to is the Hunger Games sequel, where you see Jennifer Lawrence shooting arrows at these virtual opponents that kind of disintegrate, or not disintegrate, but they kind of scatter into a million virtual pieces when she hits them. It honestly, it's kind of a mix between Tron, Hunger Games, and something else. I was hard pressed to figure out where they were getting the influence for this training facility. But probably the weakest part of that was the fact that they were essentially being pushed by this Arlie Emery type alien guy who's in charge of their training. He's this very hard-boiled guy, and he's not likable in the least. I really did not like this character, and it's not because he was stern, because you can have a stern character like that and still make him likable. I mean, just a recent example of Thorin Oakenshield in The Hobbit was a great example of that. So you can have a character like that, but they just make this guy too much of a they just make him too much of a cookie cutter, hard boiled general guy for me to get even remotely invested in him. And following that is basically this standalone episode where the droids attack Camino, and the heroes have to defend Camino. It's standard stuff, but the animation is, like I said, it got better in season two. In season three, it actually starts to look honestly kind of beautiful. This animation is very, very good at this point. I'm really liking this animation, and it really shines in the episode where the droids invade Camino, and it's this very large scale invasion, and they managed to do it in one episode too, because usually when you have a large scale invasion like that, especially on this show, it takes a whole episode arc to do that. Here it's just one episode, and they managed to fit all this stuff into one episode. So I was somewhat impressed by that. But after that is where the show really really kind of stumbles, and it's easily the weakest part of the season because it's easily uh, it's basically the most of the first half of the season is just these really boring episodes where where these senatorial characters are are basically screwing around trying to uncover these corrupt plots and 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 kind of it's the same as the Senate murders episode in season 2, except imagine that episode imagine the boredom of that episode stretched out over half of a season. That's basically what these episodes boiled down to. I mean, at one point there the Ahsoka Tano goes to teach a class of cadets on Mandalore for some reason. I don't really know what makes her qualified for that, but she goes to teach a class on Mandalore, and the cadets go on this kind of Scooby-Doo-esque mystery where they uncover this plot by a Mandalore official to exploit the black market or something. It's and the episode before that is is a tag team. You get the bland Senator Amidala character teaming up with the Duchess, the Mandalorian Duchess Satine. I said previously she was a queen. I was corrected on that point. You get them teaming up to uncover a plot on Mandalore that revolves around poison tea. Because when I think of Star Wars, I think of corruption plots. I don't think of good versus evil. I don't think of these large scale battles. I don't think of thrilling lightsaber duels. No, I think of these two bland characters going up against these nameless corrupt officials, and oh my god. Like I said, the season is very inconsistent because the first set for the majority of the first half of season 3 eats. It is so boring. It is so dull. But there are a few standout episodes, to be fair. There's one episode where it's a kind of sequel to the season 1 finale, because in season 1, at the end of season 1, Cad Bane infiltrated the Senate and took several senators hostage to free Zero the Hutt, the really annoying Truman Capote character from the Clone Wars movie. Well, there's a standout episode called Hunt for Zero, and it basically follows Cad Bane because Zero escapes from Hutt custody. The Hutts have taken him into custody, but he escapes thanks to this almost Marilyn Monroe-esque alien, where just go with it. Or not Marilyn Monroe, but whatever. So Zero the Hutt escapes, and the Hutts rehire Cad Bane to go and get him. And at the same time, Obi-Wan is teamed up with another expanded universe character called Quinlan Vos to go and track down Zero the Hutt, and they eventually collide in a battle. And Quinlan Vos apparently, I have no personal experience with this, but apparently Quinlan Vos in the comics was this very serious, um, Jedi. He's this tormented soul. They completely tossed that out the window in this series because the way they make him in the show, he's this kind of hippie Jedi. I mean, he's got these dreadlocks, he's got this face paint, and the first thing he says to Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's like, "Hey, Kenobi, looking good? How's Temple life?" Oh my god. This... I mentioned before how some of the changes to expanded universe material might piss off some of the fans. If you are a Quinlan Vos fan, and you really, really liked his personality in the comics, you might really hate what they did to him in the show. And not that they make him embarrassing, because they don't go too far into his kind of hippie demeanor. But it is kind of noticeable at the beginning. And he's not there just to provide comic relief. He's there to be a colorful character who just happens to be very useful. Because Obi-Wan uses his kind of... Apparently he has tracking skills superior to other Jedi. He has these kind of Aragorn Ranger-esque tracking skills. And they use him to track down Zero the Hutt. And probably more than anything else, one of the reasons that I really like this episode is they kill off Zero the Hutt. Because the chick that helped him escape shoots him in the chest because she wants to claim the reward that they were originally going to get together. And originally Zero was going to double cross her because they want to get Zero's inheritance from this ancient dead Hutt. So originally Zero's like I'm going to double cross her, and I'm gonna get the treasure all to myself. That makes me mad. So you're originally supposed to buy into the fact that Zero is this very conniving, very clever double agent, but at the end of the episode, his girlfriend, the chick that broke him out of Hutt prison, shoots him in the chest, and literally, when that happened, I cheered at the TV because, like I said, this guy was the single most annoying character to ever come out of Star Wars, in my opinion. And when he died, I was so happy that I would not have to listen to him anymore. Oh my god. And after that, it leads to a pretty entertaining fist fight between Obi-Wan, Quinlan Vos, and Cad Bane. Can't go wrong with Cad Bane. Still my favorite character on the show. What's another standout episode? The episode where Padme takes Ahsoka to an old friend of hers, and this friend happens to have sided with the Separatists. And basically, Ahsoka's expecting all the Separatists to be evil, like General Grievous and Asajj Ventress and Count Dooku. I should call him Count Dookie, but whatever. She's expecting all of them to be evil, and it turns out the old friend of Padme's is this very reasonable, very calm, very nice woman who hatches a plot with Padme to basically the Padme's friend is going to put forth a motion in the Separatist Senate to extend an olive branch to the Republic, while at the same time Padme is going to put forth a motion in the Republic Senate to extend an olive branch to the Separatists. Where I was like, oh, okay, I can get behind this. I can get behind this. I like the fact that they're showing people on the other side to be actual three-dimensional characters instead of just these faceless enemies. Although they pull a season 1 and kill her off in the next episode, and the peace negotiation is refused because we can't have the war end prematurely. So the Christopher Lee character kills her off. I'm still a little disappointed that he's not voiced by Christopher Lee in this show, but c'est la vie. But basically after that, the season really starts to pick up, and it picks up by reintroducing us to Asajj Ventress, the bald-headed evil Sith chick from the original Clone Wars micro series, and who was also in the Clone Wars movie and season 1 of this show. We are reintroduced to her, and Count Dooku is ordered by the Emperor to essentially kill her. Because apparently he is growing too attached, she is growing too powerful, and the Emperor is like, what's to stop you people from betraying me? So Count Dooku is forced to just kind of leave her for dead on, I think, an exploding ship, but she survives and she goes back to this planet, and this leads to another expanded universe faction called the Night Sisters. And the Night Sisters are these kind of dark Amazonian chicks who they wield these kind of glowing arrows. They wield swords. They sneak around in the treetops, and the way this planet looks, I mean, it's this very blood red planet. There's not really a whole lot of light, and whenever people bring it up in the show, they're like oh, Dathomir, that's a planet of witches. And Asajj Ventress basically goes to this witch chick, this leader of the witches called Mother something, and basically she recruits the men of the planet. She recruits one of the men of the planet to serve as Count Dooku's replacement apprentice / spy for the Night Sisters, so they can eventually strike and kill him. But and the thing is, the men of this planet apparently are the same species as Darth Maul from the Phantom Menace, and the one they choose is some guy named Savage Opress, who is the brother of Darth Maul, and he is voiced by Clancy Brown. Which I can't really argue with that. Clancy Brown does have an intimidating voice. I mean, he is the Kurgan, he is Lex Luthor. In fact, part of me expected they would do some kind of hybrid line between Highlander and Star Wars, where you know how in Phantom Menace Yoda's like, always two there are, a master and an apprentice, and so I would expect Clancy Brown doing his Kurgan voice. He's as Savage Opress, he's like, there can be only one. I don't know. That might be wishful thinking on my part, but overall, I like this guy. He's this big burly monosyllabic guy who's he looks like Darth Maul, but his horns are longer, and whereas Darth Maul was red and black, this guy is yellow and black. And eventually he breaks free. He's he's kind of like I've been oppressed by you people. I'm going to find my brother. I'm going home. So that's a cliffhanger for season 4, where he goes to find Darth Maul, who is apparently still alive after the Phantom Menace. So I like this episode just because of its really dark atmosphere. It focuses on the villains, and it really, more than a lot of previous episodes, cements that Asajj Ventress is, next to the clones, one of the more interesting characters on the show. Because you basically see her entire backstory. She was this Night Sister baby who for some reason was forced to go away with this guy, and she eventually fell into apprenticeship with this Jedi. But after the Jedi was killed, she was taken in by the Christopher Lee character, the Count Dooku guy, and she's basically been basically her whole life has been filled with loss and disappointment, and I really liked the fact that they gave this character so much more dimension. They gave this character a very interesting backstory, and they handled it really well, and you understand why she is so bitter, and I was very interested to see where she would go from here, because obviously they do not succeed in killing Count Dooku, because they're saving his death for Revenge of the Sith. But I was very interested to see where she would go, because Asajj Ventress, or Savage Press, basically goes off to do his own thing, and Ventress fails to kill Dooku, and she goes back to the Night Sisters, and I'm interested to see what happens next with that. So I really like that episode arc, and another episode arc that I like, although not as much, is the Mortis story arc, and it basically deals with Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Ahsoka Tano, who at this point have gotten redesigns. At this point, Anakin Skywalker and the other two characters I mentioned, they have gotten redesigns. They now look, Skywalker and Kenobi now look more consistent with how they looked in Revenge of the Sith. They've lost the armor that they had going in the first few seasons, aside from the forearm padding, because I guess they didn't want to animate sleeves. But they now move even more fluidly. Ahsoka Tano now wields 2 lightsabers, and she's in this kind of suggestive jumpsuit for some reason. But she has become somewhat more likable, just because she's not nagging as much, she's not as ignorant, and this is, I keep saying this, but this Mortis story arc really presents another opportunity for the animation to shine. Really, really shine, because what it is these 3 characters get stranded on this very ethereal feeling planet, and they meet these 3 entities: the son, the daughter, and the father. And basically what this whole planet is, and what these 3 entities are by extension, are living embodiments of the Force. The daughter is the living embodiment of the light side, the son is the dark side, and the father is the balance. And basically this whole planet changes whenever there is some type of fluctuation in the Force. I mean, there are floating mountains there. The weather changes very rapidly. It's this very unpredictable planet. Apparently the storms are very deadly. I mean, whenever the sun goes anywhere, whenever like he goes into this field of he goes into this field of flowers that Kenobi and Ahsoka are in, and everything dies around him. and basically the father says to Skywalker, because Skywalker is the chosen one by the prophecy. He's like, you can stay here because I'm old, I'm weary. You can stay here and be the balance between these two things. And to a certain extent, they basically say, okay, this fulfillment of the prophecy is easier and more concrete than the fulfillment of the prophecy would be otherwise, because here you have these literal interpretations, these kind of personifications, anthropomorphizations of the Force, and Skywalker would essentially be replacing the father as the balance. He keeps them from killing each other, and he keeps them in line. He keeps them from escaping, and basically it would give his life much more concrete purpose than whatever vague predictions that he might have gotten from Yoda and the other Jedi Masters. And they don't go too far into it, which might actually be a detriment, but the way this planet functions, and the way that these characters kind of go on this almost spiritual journey, it's really creative, because, like I said in the Zillow Beast episode, or Zillow Beast episodes, you've never really seen anything like this in Star Wars before, because this planet is basically completely there's no technology on this planet at all. These three entities are not the least bit affected by lightsabers. I mean, Skywalker points his lightsaber at the father, and the father just kind of grabs it and pushes it aside. And something almost, there's something very poetic and dreamlike about this planet. And like I said, this is something fresh. This is something new. It's nice that this show doesn't feel a need to strictly abide by the rules and the settings and the characters and the concepts established in the prequels. They can expand the universe. They can let us see sides to these characters that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. Like Ahsoka sees a vision of her older self who basically says Skywalker will lead you on a dark path. He's a bad influence, blah 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 blah. Anakin Skywalker sees a vision of his mom, who or not really a vision, it's the son in disguise. And he basically tries to dissuade him from leaving, dissuade him from loving the senator chick, the Padme chick. And Pernilla August reprises her role from The Phantom Menace as Anakin's mom, and she was one of the very few things I liked in that movie in terms of the acting. And she returns here, and not only can she still pull off the motherly role, the really likable motherly role, but when she's required to act all mean and nasty and very hostile towards Anakin, like, no, she is a poisoner, she does that well too. I mean, I actually wish we'd seen more of her, both in the movies and the TV show, but what can you do? And probably my favorite part of the episode, or this episode arc, is when Obi-Wan and later Anakin see a vision of Obi-Wan's master, who is voiced by Liam Neeson from The Phantom Menace. From The Phantom Menace, he comes back. Liam Neeson is in this show. He voices his character, and he just lends so much gravitas to this arc, and I really liked his cameo. It makes sense. I was just really getting into how, wow, that, and it's not even a big role either. He only has a few lines, but just the fact that they went to the trouble of getting Liam Neeson and having him voice his character. They could have easily gotten someone else to voice his character, and you could argue that maybe there are some people would argue, why did you get a celebrity voice when you could have gotten a voice actor? To a certain extent, I understand, but to me, it seems more like an attention to detail than any kind of attention grabber. It doesn't really seem like they're sticking a name on here just to stick a name on here. It doesn't really seem like they're advertising, oh, Liam Neeson's back. It doesn't really. I mean, it's not like I'm trying to think. It's not like when. It's not like when How to Train Your Dragon, or maybe not the best example. It's not like when they sometimes do in animated movies or animated TV shows where they get these big celebrities, but basically give them nothing to do, nothing unique about their character would scream, this celebrity has to play this character. But Liam Neeson does a very good job with his few lines, and yeah, like I said, he lends a lot of gravitas. And I like the very ethereal nature that they give these few episodes. But like I said, it's in terms of the drama, I don't really think it's quite as interesting as the arc with Asajj Ventress and Darth Maul's brother and the Night Sisters. I don't think it's quite as strong as that. But well, the next episode arc is basically a prison break. It's a 3-episode prison break where it's almost like this Great Escape-esque episode arc where this midget Jedi gets captured by the Separatists, and he's put into this seemingly impenetrable prison, and the Jedi and the clones lead this rescue effort. They sneak into the prison, and once they're found out, they basically have to run around this not only the prison but the very hostile molten environment around the prison. And basically what this series of episodes brings to the Clone Wars is that it brings Peter Cushing's character in from the original trilogy. He's not voiced by Peter Cushing, obviously, since Peter Cushing is no longer with us. But Admiral Tarkin, and he plays the second in command of the midget Jedi that gets captured, and basically he and Skywalker have these kind of interesting conversations about how at first they don't like each other. At first Skywalker's like, you should be grateful for our help, and Tarkin's like, I'll be grateful when we escape from this place. And eventually they do reach some common ground in that they don't necessarily agree with some of the policies of the Jedi, which eventually leads to them working together in the original trilogy. So I like that bit of foreshadowing, because basically as they're walking along, Tarkin is talking to Ahsoka. He's kind of admiring the prison. He's like, oh, it's a shame this prison fell into Separatist hands. It could be very useful. And Ahsoka's like, what are you talking about? It's horrible. And he's like, well, there you see your ignorance. This prison could be very useful if put in the right hands. This type of facility. So I kind of like that, where it kind of sets up his pride and admiration of Death Star, because the Death Star is basically that same type of impenetrable stronghold that this citadel is. And Tarkin and Skywalker talk about how apparently Tarkin feels the Jedi don't necessarily do what needs to be done. Like, why are they even in this war? They're peacekeepers, not soldiers. And And Skywalker's like, well, yeah, I do kind of agree with you on that. They sometimes I feel that they really don't carry out the proper judgment, and like a lot of character moments on this show, it's really interesting. It nicely sets up something from the original trilogy, without feeling obligatory. I mean, it doesn't really feel like fan service. It feels like, okay, these two characters would logically strike up some type of friendship or alliance. I mean, they would find common ground in their beliefs, because Anakin Skywalker feels slightly in favor of a dictatorship. He doesn't really agree with a tyrannical rule at this point, like he does in the original movies. But he, I don't know. I just really like his interaction with Tarkin, and that's one of the standout moments of the episode. Or the episode arc. But honestly, this series kind of ends on this season kind of ends on a satisfactory note, because Ahsoka is taken by these she's taken by these reptilian alien guys who basically make their living. Not make their living, but they get their sick kicks by kidnapping young Jedis and taking them to this remote jungle planet and releasing them, and then going around and hunting them down for sport. And Ahsoka is one of these victims, and on the jungle planet she meets up with these other younglings. I hate saying that because that's such a stupid term, but she meets up with these other young Jedis, and the reason that these lizard people kidnap younger Jedis, and they don't just kidnap Jedis. They kidnap aliens, or they kidnap other life forms that they feel would give a challenge. The reason they kidnap younger Jedis is because the older, more experienced Jedis would likely be too powerful. But Ahsoka basically finds a bunch of other Jedis and tries to lead this revolution. She tries to fight back. And it's this it's almost like Predator, where like the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Predator, where they are constantly on the run. They're getting torn up. They don't have any lightsabers, and it's basically a game of cat and mouse, and it's constantly switching in between who is the cat and who is the mouse. Because sometimes the lizard people will be at a disadvantage, but then they'll get reinforcements, and then they'll have the Jedi on the run. And really, they don't actually have any chance of winning. The Jedi don't really have any chance of winning until the lizard people bring in a new prisoner. And this prisoner is Chewbacca the Wookiee. And this, I'm not gonna lie, this is a blatant moment of fan service. It could really be anyone. It could really be any type of big, burly, powerful character that these lizard people kidnap. But the fact that it is Chewbacca does bring back some memories of nostalgia. And originally, the creators of this show were like, probably not going to see any Wookiees on this show, because the way their hair has to move, the way that we have to animate their mannerisms, it would just be very difficult. But having them on this show in season 3, they actually surprisingly pull it off. I mean, you obviously don't see every single hair on Chewbacca's body move, but for the most part, he does look and act like Chewbacca, and unlike Boba Fett in season 2, we never really got any clear indication of how old Chewbacca is, but we saw him in Revenge of the Sith, so we know that he could conceivably be of a significant size and significant age at the time that this series takes place. So it makes narrative and timeline sense for him to be basically the same size as he was in the original trilogy. So basically what it is that Chewbacca calls he builds a makeshift transmitter and basically calls his Wookiee buddies to this planet, and the Jedi and Chewbacca are given help overthrowing the lizard hunters with the help of these warrior Wookiees that come and basically kick all sorts of ass. And I really like the way they got Chewbacca working in this episode, because what it is he feels more fluid. He doesn't really feel as restrained by the outfit, because as good as the effect was in the original trilogy, you did get the sense that the movements that Peter Mayhew could do inside the outfit was somewhat limited, because it was a big outfit. It was a big burly outfit. It was and the way and what they can do with animation, they can actually make him move in. They can actually make him and his Wookiee friends move more fluidly, move in a more mammalian manner, and yeah, I like the way they got Chewbacca to work, and the jungle planet that they get marooned on, it's full of. This jungle planet was fantastically animated, fantastically designed. I mean, it's this very dense foliage all around. You see moss on the rocks and the trees. You see all these insects going around. You see this. You see the young Jedi get steadily more dirty. It's kind of like the Geonosis arc in season 2. You see these guys get more dirty. You see them get more tired. You see them get more beat up, and basically, and the way they got the scales and the textures to work on the lizard people, because they had a lizard guy working with Boba Fett in season 2, but the thing is he looked kind of like Barney the dinosaur, because he looked a little too cute. But the way they got the lizard people to work here, they look more intense. They look more frightening. But the reason I don't really like this episode as much as a lot of the others, or the reason I don't like this episode arc as much as a lot of the others, is because A, you don't really get a sense of the real drama that would go on being hunted on this jungle planet by these crazy lizard hunters. I mean, I would expect there to be some kind of psychological damage, because there are some, the Jedi that Ahsoka teams herself with, they've been there for a long time. I would expect them to be kind of traumatized by this point. I would expect them to be steeped in a lot more despair. I would expect Ahsoka to go through some type of they go slightly into it, but not enough, in my opinion. I would have liked to see more of an emotional journey instead of just action. But basically, another thing that really diminishes this episode is the way they've got these lizard people to talk, because the way they got these lizard people to talk is this really cheesy, almost Star Trek-esque Um, they look like the Gorn from the original Star Trek TV series. They look exactly like the Gorn. But basically, what it is that these lizard people talk in these very raspy, almost Gollum-esque voices, and it's not intimidating at all. They try to make it intimidating, but it just comes off as like I said, cheesy and a little. It's too much. It's too over the top. It's not creepy enough. They needed more. Their voices needed to be more subtly creepy. And when they're just getting picked off by these Jedi, and when they're getting completely destroyed by these Wookiees, it really, I don't know. I just didn't find them to be very threatening. But like I said, season 3 was a very mixed bag because the second half of the season, I may have some problems with it, but the second half of the season was very, very solid. The first half of the season actually really sucked for the most part. There were some good episodes in the first half of the season, but for the most part, they saved all the good stuff for the second half of the third season, and that's why I really can't honestly recommend this season over season 2. Season 2, I think, is better than this. The animation is a lot better on season 3, but in terms of the storylines and in terms of the action adventure element, and in terms of a lot of the villains, with a few exceptions, I don't know, season 2 is just better. That may be because there is a shortage of clone episodes in season 3, because they get the clone episodes out of the way at the beginning, and then the clones never really get any other episodes for the rest of the season. It's, I don't know. Season 3, it started off very badly, but it got better. It's kind of like season 1, although it was pretty jarring to basically see the entire fall season of the show just completely blow, but then after the Christmas hiatus, the show really pick up in quality. It was a little jarring, but I digress. Yeah, season 3, it had a lot of problems that kept it from achieving the greatness that I think they wanted it to achieve. But hopefully season 4 will be better.